Hey y'all, welcome back to another episode of Wilma the Wonder Hen podcast. I'm Mel and I am your host and creator. Today we're going to talk a little bit about what happened to Sassy, which was my Old English game bird Bantam hen. She was around 6 years old. This has happened to another hen of mine. If you remember Miss Brittany from last year, she was of the same breed and out of the same line. And if you happen to hear whining and screeching in the background, do not worry, do not be concerned. That is Miss Pumpkin. She is loud and she is proud today, and she had some things that she wanted to share on this episode. We will get back to her shortly. Thank you, Miss Pumpkin. Hey y'all, I'm Mel, and you are listening to Wilma the Wonder Hen. Are you a chicken mouth loving mama or daddy? Together we'll dive into the latest poultry keeping adventures, chat about everyday life, with a generous mix of some hilarious stories. Bringing you fascinating interviews with poultry owners from all over. You'll find tips and basic advice from your local veterinarian, along with new chicken keeping gadgets and reviews. I'm going to see what Mr. Jangles and Wilma has to say about that. We're going to encourage and help you build a stronger, healthier flock. Let's go see what Mr. Jangles and Wilma is up to. Let's go let these heifers out. If you've been around long enough, you remember back last year, Miss Brittany, she took a turn for the worse, and within 24 hours, she had passed away. We did a necropsy. The veterinarian's report showed that she did have fatty liver syndrome, and this is what I believe Sassy also passed from. I don't have confirmation on that yet, but that is what I'm going with. Yeah, she was in the same bloodline, and she showed exactly the same symptoms. She had a very purple comb. She went 1 minute from being fine, and then the next morning, she had passed. So let's kind of talk a little bit about fatty liver syndrome. I am not a veterinarian, do not claim to be one. This is just my personal experience, my communication with my veterinarian, communication with the state veterinarian, and topics that I have read online through merckvetmanual.com and other reputable scientific notations. This is also referred to as fatty liver hemorrhagic syndrome, which we'll get into a little bit more of that, but it's basically hemorrhage of the liver. And each case can have a different degree of where the hen bleeds out. There's different levels, and that's a lot of scientific stuff that we probably won't go over today. We're just going to give you the synopsis, the basic layman explaining of what goes on inside of their body, the causes of it. Things that are experimental right now. I did read some cases that could help prevent or lessen the degree of a flock that may have this within their bloodline. But like I said, this is all just my knowledge that I've gained from bits and pieces. And like I always say, do your own research, look at the risk factors. So yeah, let's get into it. Fatty liver syndrome is one of the top non-infectious causes of death in backyard hens because the hen's liver will have a yellow, fatty, mushy appearance to it, but not always. Not in the necropsy that we had done on Miss Brittany. She didn't have all that fat deposits on her liver, even though she had a hemorrhage of her liver. So not in every case, when you do a necropsy, you're going to find a big, fat, mushy liver on a hen that has passed from this. Everything I did read, it states that it's primarily in hens, and this has to do with the estrogen in the egg-laying production. This doesn't mean that it can't happen in a male, but from the material that I have read, it is primarily female. And they believe this to be true because the egg-laying process does stimulate estrogen, which then the estrogen stimulates storing fat in the liver. The material does state that it usually occurs during springtime. This is when their egg laying is in their highest peak. But the majority of the material did state that it has to do with the improper energy balance, an overweight hen, a hen taking in too much energy through extra fat, confined birds that lack exercise. But like I said, that Old English game bird pen always free ranged. The only reason why they're up right this moment is because of the H5N1 threat. So everyone is on lockdown or flockdown. And so, yeah, this basing it on my experience and talking with our veterinarian, this is more than likely a genetic issue that is in that bloodline. But you also have to remember these are my older hens, and this does occur in older hens. Miss Brittany was, like I said, probably five or six. She was one of the original ones, and then Miss Sassy. And that group would probably have been Miss Pumpkin's either mother or her aunties at least. So this is a concern of mine for Miss Pumpkin. We will probably not be breeding any more of that particular group. That is the only group that we have had that has came back, that has had this diagnosis of fatty liver syndrome. And the symptoms of this is really, there really isn't many symptoms prior to death. It is quick in our experience and the things that we have read. Your birds are usually found dead without any clinical symptoms. Like with sauerkraut, you have symptoms leading up to that or during that. In egg binding, you're also going to have symptoms and things leading up to that. This is usually very, very quick. Miss Sassy was fine probably an hour before I noticed her. She just started to stand in one place, and when I went back to check on her, she was kind of randomly standing in another place. She wasn't active and foraging like those things that we talk about. When you notice something is going on, they usually will stop foraging. They will just kind of stand and stare, and that's what she did. I scooped her up, I put her in the she shed, gave her Poultry Cell, which is a really great boost vitamins. Gave her her own little place to rest. I noticed her comb was really, really changing in color and the darkness of it. And I went out and checked on her before bed, made sure she was drinking and eating, and she was drinking and eating just a tad bit. She seemed okay. And the next morning, the early morning, I went in to check on her, and she had passed away. And there was nothing out of sorts. She didn't have any signs of sauerkraut, any signs of like diarrhea. She didn't have anything. She looked perfectly healthy, physically looking, and then she was dead. Now, there are other instances when your chickens die. They call it sudden death syndrome, and this can be, heart issues. In this case, it may have been a heart issue. I'm more leaning towards the fatty liver syndrome, but I don't believe it's anything contagious. There was no sneezing, no coughing, no drainage, nothing out of sorts. She looked like a normal, just happy little bird. You just want to keep your birds at a healthy weight and keep a check on the balance between carbs and added fat. They did suggest that adding carbs, extra carbs, like during the winter time, instead of extra fat. I don't know how that actually works out in real life experience. I just know in general, you need to keep your birds at a healthy weight, keep an eye on their weight. We all know we love to feed them all those fattening grubs and stuff. The research did suggest more of carbs instead of the fats. Now, this is outside of their normal feed, okay? Your feed needs to be a well-balanced layer feed. We're just talking treats here, okay? And we all know that treats should be less than 5 to 10% of your chicken's total volume of feed. So we're just talking about snacks, not your feed here. You want to be certain that your chickens have enough room in their run to, provide exercise, physical activities. COVID Cluckers has her little jungle gym over on her page for her birds. Just something to get them active. If you cannot free range them, once this H5N1 threat is over, the heifer farm will be released and we will be back to our regular, just happy chickens. Now, will that have any change in the bloodline of the Old English Game Bird Bantams? I don't know. I don't think so. I think it's a genetic there. This is just in general for your own birds. Exercise, limit, those fats. Keep a check on their weight. Make sure they get plenty of exercise. I did read some experimental things that are going on. You could add fish meal. You could add selenium. This is for like at-risk groups. This could be like my group. That is something that we are going to do. We're going to start adding. Will this stop any further losses from this syndrome? I don't know, but we're going to give it a try. We are going to continue monitoring their weight, continue providing them with good, nutritious food, and keeping an eye on everyone, making sure they are getting adequate exercise. I just think a lot of people, I've not heard a lot of this information in talks and groups. I think it's something that we just kind of wanted to share with y'all. Great little tidbits of information because it is one of the highest, like I said, sudden death of your backyard hens. They are fine one day, dead the next. Losing one of your birds is never easy, and I know that most of our listeners have been in this same position. You've either lost a dog or, a cat, or in this case, a chicken that are our pets, and we tend to get very, very close to them. And when you've done all you could, or you think you've done all you could to keep them safe, something happens and they do pass. So I hope that you can glean some information off of this, and that Miss Brittany and Miss Sassy's death can bring awareness and education to something that I don't really see a lot talked about online. But if you have a bird that has this diagnosed, or you have lost a bird from this, we would love to hear from you and hear your story and to gather more information. You can send us an email at wilmawthewonderhen.com. You can message us. You can send me a DM on Instagram or Facebook. We would love to hear from you. And until next time, bye, y'all. You got anything to say, Miss Pumpkin? Okay, she's laying an egg, y'all. Bye, y'all. I'm Mel, and you are listening to Wilma the Wonder Hen.